welcome to Gaming the System. And you've joined us on this episode with a guest. We've got the lovely Kanndiss here to join us. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about intersectionality, which is a really key part of who we are, what we talk about as a podcast. And if you've been here with us before, you know that we look at gaming through a feminist lens. So thank you for joining us again. And so the first thing we're going to crack on with is finding out a little bit more about Kanndiss and her gaming history, what games she plays, if she plays any, and how she got into gaming, if indeed that is what she is into. So if you would like to kick off, then please feel free.
Yeah, I had a good think about this question because I was a nerd, as a child, and I was like, I know you guys talk about a lot of games, but I was like, let's talk about all the games. So we're talking about like Snap, and the Trump. Like these were games that you know, at 6, 7, you used to really go out of your way to be like, I'm gonna get a different pack of Trump cards, and your parents would be like, but you have Trump cards. Same situation. It's just same game, just different people on the cards, and you'd have to justify getting yet another version of the same game. So that was like one of the ways. And then for those who are millennials, you might remember Miniclip. Did a little bit of video gaming on the computer. That's when it used to have a back to it and you couldn't move it. It also wasn't that was the screen. The actual computer was the box under the desk. So perhaps a trick one for all of you who aren't IT people, you might have thought that was the computer. That was just a screen. And then like I got into World of Warcraft, and you have the timing. So your parents are like, come downstairs. Come downstairs. You're like, just 1 second. And you have to learn all of that away from keyboard language, and you have to make sure that didn't come into household language because nobody understood any of this. And then you have like all of these friends around the world that don't live in England. So when you're talking to your school friends about your other friends, you're like, oh, yes, I have other friends that you will never meet because they're not even in the UK. And then I became like a really story type person. So I did the same thing a lot of DS fans did. We got the Switch. And we consumed all of Animal Crossing in a matter of months. Then we had to find other games on the Switch because we purely bought it for nostalgia reasons. So that's like all my different ways that I've gamed. But I've gamed many different ways. I just wanted to bring up the cards because I don't know. I got my cousin a couple of card games and they made it into the toy box too quickly. I was like, you didn't even like play the game or pretending like you liked this present.
Yeah, we have talked before about
Gem, go World of Warcraft, Animal Crossing.
Do
you wanted to jump through the screen and hug you?
We could just talk for the rest of the hour about those. I'm a big, massive. I was a massive World of Warcraft player, and now I'm playing Animal Crossing. But I think the point that you made about the card games is interesting because we do talk about like all of the games, and board games and card games and things are also really important. And my daughter, who's 13 and a half, has grown up with computers for her whole life, and we've actually worked quite hard to get her to play card games, but it has required like, no, the computer is off and this is what we'll play, because it's too easy for them to just pick up the games, I think, and the phones and all of that. So I think they are missing out because there's a joy in those games. But yes, I could. I'm sure we could talk for hours about World of Warcraft, but I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna interrupt Alex anymore.
No, you definitely. think Kanndiss would fit in really well here. I think we've well established that we're all very much very nerdy people, so you are all good here. The main thing we're going to talk about, which is obviously intersectionality. So the first question I'm going to kick off there with is, what does intersectionality mean to you? And I can address this to all of us if we want, but obviously we want to know what Kanndiss thinks as well. So whoever wants to jump in, feel free. I know that's very diplomatic of me.
I can go first.
But, yeah.
But in the lens of gaming, I think for a long time, a bit like my non-gaming, but it's a similar thing for me, book reading. It took me a long time to not see the characters as whatever was in my imagination. And I found that really difficult with some gaming, because some gaming you have to create a character, and those characters were slightly limited to whomever was designing the game. But I think it took a long time for me to come to terms with that, because it's a game and you just want to enjoy yourself and you want to be immersed in a different world. So you kind of I don't know if anyone really played it, but the Lara Croft kind of games, you couldn't change her skin tone. That was her. And so you're playing this character and it doesn't look like you, but you just play it, right? And it's fun. And a lot of people call that feminism, right? That was great woman game, but then you're like, it's not really intersectional though.
No.
And all the other characters aren't very intersectional either. So you hit those walls. And so for me in gaming, I am seeing that there's a lot of work that's going on, and it could probably be slightly more, but it's getting there. At least the conversation, I feel, is really out there, and it's one that people are battling even when they're creating games. But what I also think that intersectionality allows for is for us to think about how people have more than one way of looking at things. So it's the fact that I've seen some children learning how to play with other different neurodiverse people, and thinking about the ways that games look for different children in the way that they can develop the same as others, but also enjoy games together. And that's been really cool, watching that development in children's games. But it's also just that fun thing. Again, millennials, I don't know about children younger than me, because I don't know how your schooling really works. I've tried to observe the next generation at 5, 6, but I don't really see it. But I went to school before they split the schools, before they really went for SEN kids and the rest of us, right? I went to school then where they started grading the kids, and they started going off into this special space. And I remember wheeling one of my classmates around in their wheelchair, and it was just normal. You just wheel this person to the next classroom and you'd play with them, right? But then we became adults, and this isn't a thing, right? Intersectionality kind of becomes very within our systems. You just know that some people aren't some places, and you expect to see certain situations because that's just the norm of the, in quotation marks, positive discrimination, right? And so that's where I feel we've kind of halted in intersectionality within the world, is we know what it means. We kind of understand that people are more than one thing now, but we haven't quite got to the point where it's, in my opinion, intercepted into everything so that we can actually still move along with each other, but we accept less of the subpar, in my opinion, norms. So that could be the fact that most news channels don't have BSL. That's a subpar norm. We should just kind of move away from that now and make it such a norm that it happens all the time.
Very good point. I think one thing I'd like to jump on is also for those people that don't understand the term intersectionality, because there are probably people watching that don't, or I'd like to hope they would be, and they're opening their horizons. So when we think about intersectionality, one of the ways I like to think about it is we're all made up of different parts of ourselves. We're not just one thing. So, for example, I can say I'm intersectional because I'm disabled, and I'm also a woman, and those two things combine to make me a disabled woman, and that is part of my lived experience. Also, the other thing I could say is you could think about the area you're brought up in, whether you're working class, middle class, upper class. All these things have an impact on how you view the world and your experience of it, and your lived experience. And when different privileges and different oppressions combine, that is intersectionality, essentially. So I think that's what it means to me, is basically it's how all those things mesh together to make a person, and how each person is different, really. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to kind of get your head around when you first come up with the concept, especially if your experience has been sort of closed off and boxed into one box. It's sometimes difficult for people to realise there are lots of other boxes, and sometimes they're very different shapes. But yeah, I don't know. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I think that intersectionality is when you can truly celebrate the richness of diverse backgrounds. Because we talked about lazy writing recently, where you have, she's a woman, that's it. She's just meant there to be sexy, or a mother figure, or a wife figure. And putting people into very simple boxes, saying like, all black people are the same, all white people are the same, all lesbians the same, everyone is all the same. When in fact, every individual is a tapestry of their unique experiences and who they happen to be. And so when we don't have an intersectional society or an intersectional game, it is robbing us of the extraordinariness of individual people. Because if you just say you're a black person, this really pissed me off in France. Because there was, I think the French football team won the World Cup something, or the Euros. It's a really big thing. And I think Trevor Noah, a comedian who is now the host of The Daily Show, said that it was a joke about how a lot of the team is black. And so the French had African colonies, which is most likely why the majority of their black population comes from, which is good satire, because you have to go, yeah, your society is made up of a mix of races, which is excellent. You need that diversity in order to get everyone to go, oh yeah, we're all the same because we're all different. We're all equal, but it's not because we're all the same. It's because we all have the same worth, because we are individual people. And I think it was the Emmanuel Macron, the French president, who said, we don't think of it like that, as we don't think of race in that term, because we're all French. And that is, whenever puts it into something so simple and lazy, it's erasing intersectionality, because it takes away the ratio. He's a black Frenchman. You go, that's interesting. So a white Frenchman and a black Frenchman, they're more or less French than each other. But then you can't you can't erase that long history. And it's a fascinating history. You need to learn about colonialism in order to see why Africa and South America have so many issues. It's because they were completely ravaged by colonialism. And when you're ignoring history and the richness of that. And it's so much, and in terms of game development and creativity in every way, it opens up an infinite amount of possibilities for you to create incredible stories and create incredible characters that are not just our strong, laconic man. You can build extraordinary things, And then if we can get a truly intersectional society, then that's where we hit the feminist utopia that we all want.
I think intersectionality is a good way to describe the challenges that we face because of all of our differences. It's and a good way to talk about the importance of recognizing that at the points that people's different aspects cross, that can sometimes add additional layers of complexity into their sort of fight for equality and their equal rights. And I recently was listening to Sam Friedman talking about the class ceiling, that he's just co-written a book, and he's been all over the news this week talking about class. But he was talking about how the government's sort of culture wars that they're sort of pushing at the moment, where they're sort of saying, oh, working class boys have a really tough time, and just dismissing the issues of race and gender and disability as being another problem. But actually the point that he made is, yes, but if you're from the working class and you have, and you are black, or you are female, or you have a disability, then you are more likely to experience inequality. So we have to recognize these intersectional issues as they arise, but also I think we have to celebrate it as well for being the diversity and brilliance that is, all the things, the amazing things that people can bring to society. And I think, it's a shame. I think, when we talk a lot about, you can't be what you can't see. And, that is one of the biggest problems with the lack of diversity in gaming and the lack of appreciation of that intersectionality, because it's stifling, all different groups of people from engaging with those games and therefore feeling part of the wider society. So I think it's a really important issue. And I think, we do have to work more to, I will hold my hand up and say that there was a time, thankfully, at least over a decade ago, where I would say I'm colorblind. Color doesn't matter to me, which I felt at the time. I said it from a place of goodness, because I felt that, that was me saying I'm not racist. I don't mind what colour anyone is. That isn't something that bothers me. But I've grown to realise how dismissive that is, how that just dismisses a whole lived experience, and doesn't acknowledge that there are these intersectional sort of challenges. I don't want to call them issues. I want to use positive language around it, but again, that might be my privilege showing through. But but I think we can move on. I did, so I believe other people can move on, and I think the games industry can as well.
Definitely, yes. I'm going to come back to the point about class in a second, but I'm going to carry on with a quick fire question for you. It's a bit of a challenging one. And I would like you to name your best example of an intersectional character within a game. Matt, would you like to go first?
Fortunately, I just looked at the notes of the question, so I've had 30 seconds to open my list of games.
Well done.
And they are 99% white cis men. But that's not my fault. Because literally, if you go on Netflix and swipe through randomly, it'll be white man, white man, white man, white man, white man, white woman with a man in the background, white man, white man. So yes, it's not my fault. But off the top of my head, I think Abby in The Last of Us Part 2, because the instant thing about her is she is hench. She is a bodybuilder-sized woman. And the first time you play as her, the camera is third person behind her, and you instantly go, holy fuck. That instant thing that makes you go, whoa, and challenges your perception instantly. You see something that doesn't fit that status quo foundation that so many pieces of media are built upon. There's Abby, but then I just remembered in the latest God of War game trailer, there's a black character, a black female character, And so everyone instantly goes, Norse mythology, there are no Scandinavia, there are no black people in Scandinavia. But then that is the challenge of intersectionality. That is the bold, innovative, deliberative action to take to make something where you get all the trolls and people who are used to the status quo up in arms, so typing, going, oh, I don't like this. She's too big. She's like a man. He's black in Scandinavia. That's the response all like creators of media should be looking to make, because that is how you truly challenge people's perceptions, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Kanndiss, do you have any thoughts?
So it's not a game I've actually played, but I've heard a lot of people talking about this character, and I think it just inspired me to think about how I talk about where intersectionality is going. So it's the Apex Legends. You've got this character called Bangalore, and you're non-binary and they're mixed race and black. So I thought that was interesting because I haven't seen regularly in a lot of games that this is available. So like I had someone reach out to me about a mental health game they were creating for people, and it had this option to create an icon for you when you click onto the game. And I was like, well, what about if you have a no gendered character and you allow for people to generate how they want to look rather than having to pick something that could look like them, but then somewhat gendered focus, because you've already subliminally created that context of binary, knowingly or not. And it was just like a real throw for them, because this is a lot of programming, right, for gamers. But at the same time, you're trying to think about how you create people that look like other people. And so this was a search on my part where I was like, seems to be talked about a lot. This seems to be something that people are doing quite often. I've seen some South Asian animators also looking at the different ways that they can characterize different characters that bring in non-cis men characters into games, because we don't want just more women, we want other intersections as well.
Can I just say, you just made me think of performative intersectionality. And makes me smash my head into the desk. I played recently the latest Call of Duty, the Cold War one. I enjoyed it. I like Call of Duty games; they're good fun. Some of them have fantastic stories. And Kanndiss will show you our new Pat Fem index. We'll explain that at some point if it pops up. So Alex, if you think the situation calls for it, then
we can bring it out.
And at the start, you name your character, and you're a faceless name character. Basically, you put your name in, and then you can put your gender in, and you can be male, female, or non-binary. So straight away you think, oh, that's interesting. That's progress. That means they must be thinking about gender. Good for you. But then you think about it. It has absolutely no impact on anything in the entire game. So that means it's not. They're not using it, the richness of it that it can bring. And then you realize that this is set in the 60s and 70s. No one talked about non-binary. I think you weren't allowed to be gay in the military. They didn't let women in the military, and all of that stuff. It just makes you go, you didn't think about this at all. You looked at general society and thought, people are getting more progressive, so we'll put non-binary in, and then we'll get loads of brownie points. No, you don't get any brownie points for performative intersectionalism.
Can I
think,
do my one?
Yeah, you go. You go.
No.
Yeah.
I was going to say The Sims 4. The Sims really, because you can choose how you look, and you can be, you know, in a same-sex relationship, and you can present yourself in whatever way you want. There's no restrictions on like hairstyles and things like that. You've got access to pretty much everything there, and so I think that's but I mean, you are limited by your own prejudices, I suppose, but I think, aren't we all? But I think I really struggled actually outside of that, and I was thinking, well, I mean, most of the sort of fantasy games like Dragon Age and the online games and things, you can really play with how your character looks, so you can give them all sorts of stuff. But I mean, that's long been the case with those kind of sort of Dungeons and Dragons style games. So, you know, I'm not sure that. I mean, they are doing something good, and it is positive, and I think it should be acknowledged. But it's not. They're not sort of stepping outside of their safe space for that. Go on, Kanndiss.
Go on.
I think what it was for me, I'm sorry to bring up DS again, guys, but what it was for me was, obviously, I know Animal Crossing was a work in progress, and there was a little bit of me that was like, work in progress? Dropping it while it's in progress? I'm not sure. But there was a moment when your character couldn't have afro hair, but I could have afro skin tones. So different melanated tones, and so you're like, and then they created the different styles, but they were still rigid for a while, and then they got better. And I was like, but this is where, you know, the capability, the technology has been around for a while, and this is where I was saying, like, I had to do a little bit of digging to find characters that were already created, that were purposefully already that, because the creation element is, whether performative or not, is a huge part for other people to venture into outside of certain realm games, right? Because, you know, in certain spaces you're going to be able to go full whack, make yourself a gorilla, but in other spaces it's really rigid still, and you're wondering why there's this restriction. Because, like, I saw people asking Animal Crossing where they're going to be able to make a wheelchair or prosthetic, you know, like, because this makes you then have to be not yourself, but you're supposed to be creating an island of yourself, so you're kind of not, because it's not you, because you're not really creating yourself. And that's why I found it really good that mental health app asked me what I thought of their profiles, because I was like, in a way, these do what Matt is trying to say politely. It did become a bit performative, because you've got one that's like got a short haircut that's supposed to be non-binary, but that doesn't mean it's non-binary. It just means it's this weird short haircut. So you got the one with the long hair, and you got one with no hair, like kind of boy cut, right? And then you got this one with a little bit of like a quiff, and you're like, that doesn't really mean that it's non-binary. That just means I can have 3 different hairstyles, and if I'm non-binary, I could be having long hair, but it doesn't. Like, you know, it's almost at the point of going blue, yellow, pink.
But on the haircuts in Animal Crossing, I think that you can now get a broader sort of set of hairstyles, but you have to pay for them. They're not part of the base. Well, they certainly weren't when they came through, and I think that's a problem, because you're making people having it's not coming as a standard package. It's like an add-on. I mean, you don't pay real money, you pay game money,
but it still creates this kind of like, you've got the generic, but my hair is not generic. Being able to get something with a hijab shouldn't be I have to work around the island to get my hijab. It should have been part of the
standard
offset. Like, you have a hat option, a hijab option should be offset. But this is where we then float back to those areas where we know these already exist, and you're trying to work out, what do we do to bring it not down, but this is the only word I could think of at the time, bring it down into the everyday games.
Yeah.
They're not full on story, adventure, community type games, because that's where certain people go because they enjoy that kind of virtual experience. Some people don't.
Wow, that's a really good point though. You have to work harder to be seen in Animal Crossing as a minority, which is a real reflection of real life.
It's the idea that there's normal, then there's abnormal. Further away from the status quo.
Really interesting. Today, I'm buying some walking boots at the moment, and we had a big conversation about boots, and my husband was looking about them, and this web they'd made women's boots. They were one of the first companies to design boots for women, walking boots, which is great. And they said, so we've got these women's boots, and then we've got the normal boots. And he was like, "Hey, you spoiled it because you called them normal boots. Why just call them men's boots? Or just not gender them at all. Just call them, like from, I don't know. But anyway, it was just, this is the problem, isn't it? There is this thing that's the norm, and that includes massive sway."
Yes, I was going to mention, because the name an example of intersectional character is such a hard question. Mine was actually going to be a speculative one, because I wanted to talk about a game that's not even out yet, which is one I saw a trailer for recently. I think it's called Forspoken, which I want to be hopeful and positive about, but I'm worried it's going to be performative. I don't really know too much about it at the moment, other than that the main character is black and a woman, and has some kind of cool bracelet thing which makes her fly around and looks really cool. But don't know much about that. But anyway, since we have talked about cost in games and the cost of games generally, I wanted to talk about whether we think video games specifically are a privileged thing, because we can all play games. We can all play different games depending on whether we're working class, middle class, upper class. We can all play cards if we can find a pack of cards. Relatively speaking, the price of a pack of cards compared to the price of a video game is quite a large gap. So would you say that video games are really more of a privileged item? And does that prohibit a lot of society from playing them because of their cost? It's a long-winded question. Sorry.
I would just say yes.
Yes. It's kind of an easy answer, isn't it? But yeah.
But only because of the games that I was attracted to as a working class kid. Like, I remember really sticking to computer games that were video games, but computer games, because you could access them for free for a certain amount. And then, if you, I'm gonna confess to something, but anyway, if you were a geek like me, you could find hacks and things and try out games until you didn't get viruses and stuff. But anyway, there was an element of that time in my life, and I realized actually I just want to have the game. So then you have to get a job to be able to afford the game, and then your second home is the game shop, where you're looking for discounts and you're looking for availability. You've got to get friends who can help you keep up your gaming life. And there's all these questions about like the gambling element of it, because children learn how to use credit cards quite early and such. So, I definitely wanted to go off on that tangent about parents who found they've got huge bills for paying for games and the cost of fun for children, because it's not just adults who get left out of playing games as well. But then there's the accessibility. So like I was talking to my mum about how she's a gamer, and she was like, I'm not a gamer. I was like, but you play Candy Crush like religiously. Like you've got like the most, I feel like the world's highest score, because you play it every day. You have a time to play it. that I'm not allowed to interrupt you. It's up there with Women's Hour. So in the day, there's Women's Hour and there's Candy Crush time. So you're a gamer. You have specific times to play your game. And we've had this back and forth. And I was like, but you like Candy Crush. You've tried other versions of games and things like that. And you don't like it, but you like Candy Crush. You know, so you've definitely picked your game. But also, she won't pay for any of the add-ons. Like, she is strictly free. But, you know, there's that little caveat that she paid for the Wi-Fi, right? So she's in some ways having to pay for it in a way. But I do think it's classist because if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can't enjoy the computer games like I was. And then it has a tangent on all the additionals that you have to be able to acquire. So like for me, my Nintendo was a very luxury gift during lockdown.
Yes.
We do say very, very often that the term gamer and feminist are very similar. You go up to someone and say, you think women should be equal, so you're a feminist. And they go, I'm not a feminist. And you go, well, you think violence against women is wrong, right? You go, yes, of course. Do you think women should be paid the same as men? Yes, of course. You're a feminist. And no, I'm not. And people reject the names because the names have some kind of stigma attached to them.
Yeah.
It made me think about the big issue really, I think, is your disposable income, and from like the poor to the wealthy, it is, I know from experience, like the time of is just like discovering feminism. When you have a comfortable middle class life, it's very, very hard to look outside of that and understand the way of life for a lot of people, because there are plenty of people I think they're like, at the minute the bastards are trying to sell PlayStation 5 games at £70 and they're keeping them at £70 for as long as possible to see if they can get away with it, when £60 should be the limit for this level of game. Okay. So I look at that and think, I'm not paying that. That's ridiculous, unless it's something like God of War or maybe Horizon Zero Dawn. So I think I could stretch to that if I really wanted to. But then that relies on me having a PlayStation, having a TV, having reliable power, having the disposable income to get that, and also having the console. Straight away, the console is £350 or £450.
Yeah.
And so it relies on you having that. And then straight away, that is a luxury item. It's not a necessity. And there'll be people, so many people, who will look at that and think, there is no foreseeable future where I'll be able to afford that, because, and even now that the government has cut benefits by £1,000 a year for the poorest people, that gets even worse, because people, like, I never had any idea of the life struggles that people have lower down on the class system. And again, that's where the intersectionality comes in, because, as I was saying earlier, it shows you the richness and substance of everyone's lives. And then you can look and go, God, this is a massive class problem. The way we get it so people have more disposable income is to have a more progressive and socialist society that sees people not just as workers for capitalism, but lifts them up as actual human beings who deserve respect and dignity. And then we want to be like Star Trek, where everyone can follow their bliss. But for now, needing to... Yeah, the secondhand game stuff is awesome as well. So it's about options. But again, just being able to think, like, the government has actually no idea what it's like to be poor. And I thought they were just, for the most part, they're just entitled arseholes who don't care and enjoy it. But since Dominic Raab, who I think was the Justice Secretary, who said that we don't like misogyny in any way, whether it's a woman against a man or a man against a woman, which means he is a profoundly stupid and ignorant. And that just made me sit back and go, oh my God, are they all just actually that stupid? Right, it's not all intentional. They're not having a master plan to go, I hate women in the middle classes, we'll keep them in their place. They are just that stupid and ignorant. Just one of those ones where there's been so much pain and suffering coming from the Conservatives recently. It's sad.
Jem, what are your thoughts on the cost of gaming?
Yeah, well, I mean, it clearly is massively prohibitive to people. I mean, if you wanted a PlayStation 5, it was what, £500? I don't know.
Yeah, about 450, 500, yeah.
£500, and it wasn't easy to get, so you had to spend time doing it.
Yeah.
And then, as Matt says, the games are, the current games are ridiculously priced. I won't pay that kind of money, and I'm have a comfortable income, so I just think it but on the other hand, it's a hobby, and most hobbies do cost money, so there is an element of that. So go on, Kanndiss.
You see what?
Come in. You don't have to put your hand up.
No, it's right. It's just that, you know what I struggle with, and I'm going to go back to my little beginner thing, is like we were agreeing about that beginner stage, and that's where gaming should start. I'm not saying that you can't get into gaming as an adult or a pensioner, etc., but gaming really should be something that you enjoy doing from the kickstart, like as a baby and etc. And then you should find your own gaming that you enjoy. So like I think what Matt's talking about, which is like this taboo of being a gamer, like gaming should be anybody's thing. Like if you like tennis and you like physically going out, that means that we might be your kind of thing. It's more, physical. But then there's people like myself, Jem, and maybe all of us on this call who like the adventure world. We like a bit of a story. I'm not just gonna turn this on if there's not really a challenge to this game. Like, I'm not interested. So, there's the other people who enjoy that. But then there's the people who enjoy virtual worlds, where there's a lot of communication and it's there's element of game, but it's a lot of necessities around the headgear that you get, the chair, because you're going to be sat there for a while communicating with people online, working through scenarios and things. And that's where then I feel the intersections of society come in, because you're taking away the people like me who like trump cards. It was still expensive. You still had to go to WH Smith's and try and see if you could get them on a discount, because it's still £25. Like, we're talking Woolworths days, we could get a bag of sweets for £1. Me asking my mom to spend £25 on a bunch of cards. This was not going to happen. Like, and I really loved them. So, these were going on a Christmas list, and we were really having to root for them against like reasonable stuff like PJs. We're like, are we going to get the trump cards? You're shifting through the Christmas present, trying to see if it's in there somewhere. Maybe it's like layered
pajamas
inside the sock or something. And so you're living that life. As a child, I came from a working class background, and I know that this was not part of it. This was not part of the hobbies. Hobbies were things that hopefully would lead to employment, or being able to gain employment, or being able to hang out with employers. So you could say to your employer, I play croquet. This was the kind of thing that they were trying to install in me so that I could get somewhere. So that's why I played clarinet for ages, and then had to be like, sorry.
Yeah.
This is not it. This is not it. I don't like it. I'm sorry. Can we dip out of these classes, please? And now, I tell my parents that I actually had a colleague who liked to play Dragons and Dungeons, and they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you should have been down for the video games, because now actually I have a colleague who likes video games." Yeah, you were wrong, but I can play tennis. Thank you. So that's where I come in with like the playing games. Like games should be accessible because they allow conversation, they allow for people to come together. And like me, I had friends around the world, so I learned about different cultures and people.
Exactly. So they have a benefit. But I think these days, like mobile gaming is actually really bringing gaming to a whole different audience, and the cost is right down. I mean, you know, mobiles are everywhere. They're all over the world, and you know they're going up and up and up, and they're in the most remote places as well. And you have villages right out in the sticks where, you know, they have nothing else but they have a shared mobile phone that they share around the family, and these things are allowing people to access Candy Crush and other games which they don't have to pay for. Yes, they have to pay for a mobile connection, and yes, there is a cost, but the cost is coming down and down and down. And the you know, the introduction of mobile gaming, I think, has kind of really opened up gaming to a whole different audience that were never able to access these things in the past, and is opening up a whole different set of very exciting opportunities, I think, for people all over the world. And you know, and I think that's really good. I mean, I think there are other games, like my daughter's just started playing Genshin Impact, which is like, you know, really high quality. It's kind of like Zelda style look and feel, and it's completely free. I mean, you can pay, you can buy stuff, and it obviously does encourage you, but it's not really hard to sell stuff. So she's playing it quite happily without having to pay anything. I mean, you know, she needs a computer to be able to play it, but she could probably, you know, so I think the barriers, I hope, are coming down, because I think, Kanndiss, you made such a good point in that, you know, playing World of Warcraft and games like that introduced you to a whole bunch of people, and it introduced me. I mean, I met my Swedish husband through World of Warcraft, and you know, so I would not have come into contact with this person if I hadn't been playing that game. So, you know, it's opportunity to meet people from all around the world that you wouldn't. I mean, I know Sweden isn't that far away, but you know,
it's far for some people.
And I played, you know, and I played other games. I played MUDs, where I met people who came over from Guatemala, and other people came over from America, and you know, so we you know, that it does broaden your horizon. So it's definitely a positive thing that we should encourage as many people as possible to do. And I think, you know, reducing those barriers is essential. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of cost issues, but I have hopes. I mean, I might be naive, but I have hopes that that those barriers are reducing.
Yeah.
You want to tell Kanndiss what your character was dressed like?
Oh, she was usually, well, the World of Warcraft gear was very like random stuff. So she but yeah, no, I don't think.
Okay, you don't have to
chainmail bikinis right now, do we?
We can move on. We can move on to an important tangent that I want to flag up, which is going to bring down the negative points, positive points that Jem has made. So sorry for crushing that, Jem. But it's really important. I want to talk about microtransactions, just to bring this to a close before we come to the world card question. I wanted to flag up a video that I watched on YouTube recently by Jim Sterling, the channel Jimquisition, and it's about microtransactions being an accessibility issue because of the way when you talked about Trump's Kanndiss and the kinds of really popular games we're all obsessed with in our childhoods, you get the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and the same thing works with microtransactions. And what it's doing is they're specifically targeting those people that are going to get fear of missing out the most, that are going to feel, I've got to have this thing, because they might be not neuroatypical, and they might have to feel like they need all of the loot boxes or collect all of the specific cards in this game because they like collecting things and things. And it preys on those aspects of people to get lots of money out of them, which is a horrible ableist horrible thing. But I just wanted to know if anyone had any thoughts on microtransactions in general and how they're an important issue within intersectionality.
There's a South Park episode about free game with microtransactions, and they hit it perfectly on the head. You make a game that is rubbish, but is just enough to keep you playing. And then you use the microtransactions and go, oh yeah, I can do this shit gameplay cycle a bit more. And then your friends ask you, are you enjoying it? And you go, what do you mean? The purpose isn't to enjoy. The purpose is to just do this cookie cutter thing. There are so many games out there right now. They're all just different. It's the same thing with different skins. And just going round and round in that circle. But again, it's that our school system is so deplorable and useless, because it's just, Caroline would say that people, it's just teaching kids how to pass tests, giving them no life skills. And one of those important life skills you can have is critical thinking and source analysis. So when you look at something, you're able to see it for what it is that you can. It's sort of like the X-ray vision, so that you're less likely to be duped. And a massive thing that I'm very passionate about is that they should be taught about what propaganda is, because propaganda is one of the most powerful forces in human society. It can get people to believe anything. And if we could teach that some extremely, so then they can look at anything that comes before them with a critical eye, and that then people will go, they'll notice when people are lying to them, and they'll see these games and go, well, maybe I enjoy this one, but the truth is it's only free because they want me to buy things in the middle of it. And I just, I wish that people had been taught that from a younger age.
I think for me, I'm going to use another TV show that I enjoy, but I have to acknowledge isn't perfect. I'm just saying that now. But the fact is, I wanted to use Big Bang Theory as an example of them actually showing how this form of money making continues into your adulthood, and they're showing these mainly men investing in extras for their magazines and their games and all of this stuff. And you actually even hit the nails on the critical thinking. These are really really supposed to be the top brains of society, and they still are getting sucked in. There's obviously examples of neurodivergency in some of their characters, but it's not really that I wanted to point on it. It's the fact that we get used to it from a young age, and then we assume that that's just, because you enjoy the game, but actually you're just collecting stuff because you've got used to buying into it. And I just wanted to curb into another negative, which is the gambling culture that comes with that, because I got seeped into it as a child. You try to find a way to get a coupon or a way around the add-on so you can still get the add-on, because you want to be involved. You don't want to be held back. You don't want to know that you're going to die because you can't buy the right sword or something. So you're trying to get these things. You're trying to go into the dark net, as I was, to find the forums, to find the ways to get around these things. And then, you try and explain this to people who are supposedly getting A stars and things like that, but they don't understand the other elements of what they've conformed to. And that's why I said right at the beginning that it's also like how intersectionality becomes part of our norms, because we can be different types of people, and we can see accessibility that's allowing for other different types of people to be in a space. And that doesn't lessen the difference. But what we're seeing is that in some places we're saying it's normal for a child's game to have add-ons. But why is that normal? Why are you conditioning children from 1 to 3 to have add-ons, and telling parents to pay for add-ons for a game for a child between 1 and 3. Because you're telling that child that as they grow up, there's going to be add-ons that creates elitism, which will keep you out if you can't afford those. And so it's a subliminal thing. And I'm the deep person who's been thinking about this from young, of like, how do we stop these add-ons? Because that's the same reason we have the Dominic Raabs of this world who got a couple of add-ons by going to a grammar school, not quite Eton, but grammar. So he's not as low as someone like I've forgotten his name. Who's the man who runs the Labour Party right now? Keir Starmer, there we go. Not as low as Keir Starmer, who came from proper working class background, but worked up to be a sir. Dominic's supposed to feel better than him, but he's still ill-educated because he's been soaking up the same stuff. He doesn't know anything else, and he's not going to educate himself on anything else because it's unproductive. It's not needed. And that's why I agree with Matt, that if we had critical thinking and it was a necessity, especially for people going to Eton, grammar schools, prep schools, if you had to do the critical thinking, it wouldn't allow for you to just pass your exams because you'd have to question stuff. But they don't question stuff. And that's why then we keep seeing the same kind of, I'm going to use your language again, Matt, cookie cracker stuff coming out because the same kind of people creating these things because they've all read the same kind of book. And then there's people like me who sit outside and go, well, if it's not changing, I want to have fun, so I'll tolerate it. I think there's some better people than me who don't tolerate it and hold them accountable. But I definitely have been part of the tolerate crew who looked at Animal Crossing, bought it, did all of the excitements to be able to get hair that looks like my hair. And then sat begrudgingly realizing that this is still not fair because it's not quite there. And it did it on purpose because it knew it could drop a game that wasn't completed and people would buy it and they'd make, was it millions in sales?
I mean, it's still the number one game.
They monopolized the gaming world for a while and held it by a chokehold because no one else could get anyone else to buy into it. And it's because a whole lot of us had I can't think of words, this memory of our childhood of playing Animal Crossing. So we all bought it because we wanted the new version.
Nostalgia.
So sad times a bit.
Jem, did you have any final thoughts on microtransactions before we
I think everyone's kind of said it all really. I mean, I think that there are I think it's really interesting what you're saying, Kanndiss, about it sort of representing the lived experience for so many people. But there are so many things that are there that you have to pay extra for. You have to, and I think that is really interesting. I think that what you were saying, Alex, about it, being quite problematic for people that are maybe not neurotypical and struggle with needing to have everything. I know a friend of mine was saying that her son, he's only sort of 7 or 8, and he was saying he really stresses when he plays Fortnite because he always wants the new gear and he uses all his money. So for birthdays and Christmas, all he wants is well, I can't even remember what they're called, but the Fortnite money. And I remember I've had the same conversations with my daughter. Like, are you sure that you want to spend your money on a virtual thing? Because and I think I straddle this because I think there's a part of me that I very much don't like to spend my money on virtual stuff. I'm very kind of like, I struggle with myself with that. But I'm also able to say, but I have this money that I can spend on things that I want to have, my luxury money, whatever that pot is. And if I choose to spend it on this thing because I know that I'm going to enjoy this add-on, it's an extension to the game, or it's going to give me something, then I make that choice. And I think, I've come from the right generation that I've kind of been able to do that and learn those skills. But I think, as you say, Kanndiss, we're teaching children at a very young age now that, you just buy the extra bits and what they're getting is something they can't sell. I mean, these days you download your computer games and then you don't have a physical game that you can sell at the end when you finish playing it. That's it. That money's gone. Whereas when I first started gaming, you bought your computer game and then you'd go and sell it secondhand somewhere and make the money back and put that towards your next game. You can't do that these days. And I think that's capitalism though at work, really, isn't it? And we've talked a lot about how capitalism is just set up to fuck us all over. Excuse my French.
The school system is basically what you said, Kanndiss. It's conditioning. They're not trying to teach you how to thrive in your life and how to understand the world. It's conditioning you to fit in as another cog in the capitalist system. Yeah.
And if you can't afford it, that's your own fault for not being, not working hard enough, not wanting it enough, or whatever the current attitude is about that. Yeah.
And on that happy note, I'm going to bring up the wildcard question.
Can I just say one last thing?
Go on, Matt. I was meant to ask that as well, but yes.
Yeah, one thing I focus on that stands out to me a lot when I think about intersectionality and representation, and there's the performative side, and then there is the authentic side that tries, but then there is a limit to that. And the two things that stand out to me the most are that I have never seen a trans woman in any video games. I've seen 2 trans men in video games. Basically, they don't exist in the video game sphere at all. And so straight away you think, there's the having a trans person of any stripe is a positive step. But then there is so much, all the transphobia seems to be pointed 90% onto trans women. And so that's a real problem because they are just seen through this right-wing lens because that's where all the loudest publicity voices are. So that's a real failing of intersectionality because it's just they go with the safe intersections rather than the bold ones. So that is one extremely bold one, which I think needs to be tackled to just show true substance of people. And then another one, which I don't think is ever brought up, is that yes, you have black people. There's loads of black characters now, but then in terms of skin tone, it always seems to be towards the lighter side of the skin tone. They never go to the very darker skin color black people, and those are the things where they go, we're going to be intersectional, but there is a limit to it because of what we think we can get away with. Just that comes to mind very frequently when I think about intersectionality.
Yeah, and there's definitely at least another episode we could fill. There's definitely some questions we couldn't fit in today, but since we're already over now, I'm going to finish it, I'm afraid, guys. So we are going to crack on with the wildcard question, which is, since we're in October, I thought I'd do a sort of Halloween-esque themed one. So my question is, if you could be a zombie in a game which features zombies, which game would it be and why? Jem, would you want to kick off?
Oh gosh, if I could be a zombie in a game that features zombies, well, I'm just going to cheat because I can't think of anything else. So I'm going to go with The Walking Dead, just because actually I quite like those zombies. They're kind of cool, and so I would be a zombie in The Walking Dead. And also, as a game, I think The Walking Dead was awesome, and I played the first game, which I just found very, very emotional. So I would recommend, if you haven't played The Walking Dead, the game, I would definitely recommend it.
Awesome. Kanndiss, do you like zombies? Are you not a zombie fan? No.
I'm not. You know what? I don't
No,
even like
it's hard.
mannequins.
No. Oh, gosh.
So I've never been to Madame.
Yeah.
I've never been to Madame Tussauds because it freaks me out. So unfortunately, I don't have a game.
That's all
But
right.
you know, if you want to create a game, I'd like my zombie to have 2 heads.
Mm-hmm. Any particular reason? So it can chat.
I just
when it's off, or...
No, I just feel like a lot of the zombie things I've seen is still like just a normal human that's got the disease of some kind. I'm like, I want to zhuzh it up. Let me have 2 heads. Yeah.
That's a valid point. Yeah. See, even zombies can be intersectional too. Matt, what is your choice?
So straight away I have a game idea that I want to make at some point in the future when I have got my own game studio, which is the long-term plan. It's called Romans versus Zombies, where it's a zombie plague spreads across the Roman Empire. So hopefully I'll be able to say that one day. But for now, probably from The Last of Us Part 2, because they are very intersectional zombies, because they are infected with a fungal virus. So they turn into these horrific, disgusting, horrifying, vile monsters. And there's this one particular one called the Rat King, which is a conglomeration of zombies that are just sort of stuck together. There's rat kings are where rats get their tails trapped together. So they're all sort of stuck together in this horrible mass. And it's just this horrible, creative, horrible thing.
Nice. Excellent choice. Mine, I don't know if it's technically a zombie, but I was going to pick Fallout 4 and the ghouls from Fallout 4. Because, you know, the world's pretty desolate, and they're pretty desolate, and they'd seem pretty okay in it. You know, they're just living life in a world that is right for them. And it seems to me they just want hugs a lot of the time, you know. But that's one of the things that turned me off of Fallout 4. I was just getting rushed by ghouls. I was like, nope, this is not the game for me, because I'm not a horror fan. I'm not a horror fan at all. So once those came on, and after the Deathclaw, I was just like, maybe I should not play Fallout 4 anymore. But that would be my choice, definitely. But yeah, so this has been an excellent episode. Thank you very much for joining us, Kanndiss.
Yeah, thank you.
We really appreciate it. And thank you.
Can I say one
for
thing?
Watching. Of course you can. Yeah. Feel free.
Just for anyone who's watching, who's really been thinking about this conversation, I really want to be really pro everybody power. So like just Google some courses on programming, animation, design, you know, like get your fingers in a twirl, figure out what you like, because the best way to get more visibility is for us to create it as well. So sometimes it could be just finding what you like. It might be the coding, it might be the actual animation production, it might be the designing, it might be the story writing, and you might find the right crew. You know, I've used apps like Clubhouse, Facebook, Switch. I found loads of different spaces for gamers who are a bit more creative. So, you know, if you are thinking about, oh, this sounds like a really good conversation, how can we make an impact? Try and find your crew and your way of making games happen.
Indeed.
And then come and tell us about it.
Yeah, we'd love to know. Put it in the comments, because that's how the algorithms find us. We'd love to know. Let us know. Please like, share and subscribe. We have been gaming the system. We have content for you every Thursday at 7 o'clock in the evening, UK time, either a podcast or some live streaming. So you know where we are, you know where we're at on all the socials. Thank you for watching and have a good week, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.